Endzone 2 takes the usual city builder stress and cranks the hostility up to ridiculous levels. Building a functional settlement is hard enough, but trying to keep your people alive when a radioactive sandstorm decides to park itself over your water supply is pure chaos. The interface can feel a bit overwhelming during your first crisis, but figuring out how to optimize your supply chains while the world literally falls apart is incredibly satisfying. Snagging an apocalypse simulator this dense for under $9 feels like absolute theft, especially when you realize how fast an entire weekend disappears while trying to save just one more colony. Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons solves the biggest problem with classic beat-em-ups. They usually get boring after one playthrough. Mixing roguelite elements into old-school brawling means every run forces you to adapt your tag team strategy based on random upgrades. Sure, the art style might take a minute to get used to, but the combat loop is ridiculously tight. You swap characters mid-combo to extend juggles or save a dying fighter, creating some genuinely sweaty moments. Seeing it drop near $6 makes it an absolute no-brainer for couch co-op, especially when a single successful run feels this chaotic. SpaceBourne 2 is the kind of passion project that makes you wonder what massive studios are even doing with their budgets. One guy essentially built a massive sci-fi universe where you can seamlessly fly from space combat down to a planet's surface to engage in third-person firefights. It definitely has some rough edges and occasional Euro jank, but the sheer ambition of creating your own faction and commanding fleets is staggering. Grabbing this amount of absolute freedom for $10 is ridiculous. It easily scratches that massive space opera itch while letting you build an empire from a single rusty fighter. GTFO hates you, and it expects you and 3 friends to suffer together. This is a brutal, unforgiving descent into an underground complex where waking up the sleeping horrors is basically a death sentence. The communication required here is intense. You'll spend 10 minutes quietly synchronizing melee takedowns with your squad, only for someone to sneeze and trigger a massive, horrifying swarm. The learning curve is steep and painful, but completing a complex extraction after 30 minutes of pure stress is unmatched. At less than $12, it's the cheapest way to truly test your friendships under extreme panic. Blade Runner Enhanced Edition is a piece of gaming history that still does branching narratives better than most modern releases. Running around a rain-slicked cyberpunk city hunting replicants feels incredibly authentic because the game actually randomizes who is human and who isn't every time you start a new file. The remaster itself had a bumpy launch, and some of the upscaled backgrounds look slightly weird, but they've patched it into a very playable state. For literally $2, grabbing a detective experience where your own suspects change their identities between playthroughs is just smart buying. Man Remastered takes a deeply unsettling Nintendo 64 classic and makes it play flawlessly on modern hardware. This is a bizarre, non-linear descent into the dead side, packed with serial killers and dark voodoo magic. Night Dive Studios completely overhauled the controls, restored cut content, and fixed the horrific frame rates of the original. The level design will absolutely get you lost. It comes from an era that refused to hold your hand, but mapping out this twisted universe is incredibly rewarding. Dropping $4 on a masterclass of atmospheric dread easily justifies a spot in your cart. Turok 3: Shadow of Oblivion Remastered finally finishes the trilogy, rescuing a weird, ambitious shooter from being trapped on aging hardware forever. It ditches the massive jungle mazes of the first 2 games for a tighter, more cinematic experience that honestly feels a lot like Half-Life with better weapons. The cerebral bore is still one of the most disgusting and satisfying guns ever coded. While it is noticeably shorter than its predecessors, the pacing is absolutely relentless. Catching this overhaul for around $10 gives you a flawless evening of pure, unadulterated late 90s aggression without any of the original hardware headaches. Breathedge is basically Subnautica if it was written by a stand-up comedian and set in the freezing vacuum of space. Trying to survive a massive interstellar hearse crash while being mocked by an immortal chicken is a very specific type of chaos. The oxygen management early on is genuinely punishing, and you will absolutely suffocate a few feet from your airlock, but building a fully functional space station out of duct tape and frozen corpses is absurdly fun. When a survival game packs this much personality and base-building depth, scoring it for the price of a cheap coffee feels almost illegal. Factory Town looks like a cozy, colorful village builder, but underneath that cute exterior is a terrifyingly deep logistics caja. Setting up your first wooden conveyor belt feels simple enough, but fast forward 10 hours and you're agonizing over fluid dynamics and complex rail networks to maximize magic potion output. It lacks the intense pressure of games like Factorio, since there aren't enemies attacking your base, which honestly makes the optimization process deeply relaxing. Getting this much supply chain brain food for $5 guarantees your weekend will disappear into a hypnotic loop of just tweaking one more delivery route. Urbek City Builder strips out the annoying financial management of most municipal simulators and focuses entirely on organic growth. There's no money here. Instead, you manage resources and neighborhood conditions to trigger specific building evolutions. Want a nightlife district? You have to strategically place commercial zones and entertainment to naturally spawn it. The interface occasionally hides the exact requirements you need, which can cause a little head-scratching, but watching your voxel slums organically transform into gleaming tech hubs is endlessly satisfying. At less than $3, it's an incredibly relaxing puzzle box that respects your time and your wallet. Dream Engine's Nomad Cities forces you to build an automated stronghold in a world completely overrun by nightmarish creatures. But when the hordes inevitably overwhelm your defenses, you just activate the engines and fly your entire city to a new, unplundered map. It completely flips the survival builder genre on its head. You're constantly weighing the greed of extracting a few more resources against the risk of your whole civilization getting chewed apart. Getting this brilliant mix of logistics and frantic relocation for $12 makes the inevitable panic attacks completely worth it. Grow Up drops a ridiculously clumsy robot onto a vibrant alien planet and asks you to climb literally everything. The physics-based movement is deliberately awkward at first, forcing you to individually control your robot's hands to grip ledges and bouncy leaves. But once you start unlocking gliders and jetpacks, the vertical exploration becomes incredibly fluid. The camera will occasionally fight you inside tight caves, but launching yourself thousands of feet into the atmosphere off a giant beanstalk never gets old. It's a bite-sized shot of pure, unadulterated joy that costs $2. Grow Up is the prequel that originally proved how fun physics-based climbing could be. The scale is slightly smaller than its sequel, focusing heavily on riding massive growing plant shoots to connect floating islands. It's entirely built around the tactile sensation of grabbing the environment, making every slip and near miss feel incredibly tense. You can easily finish the whole thing in a single sitting, which actually makes it the perfect palate cleanser between massive RPGs. Spending $1.50 to experience one of Ubisoft's weirdest and most creative experimental projects is the easiest buying decision on this list. Pacify proves you don't need a massive budget to make grown adults scream into their microphones. Your only goal is to run around a dark, cursed house, burn marked dolls, and avoid a wildly unpredictable entity that gets faster and more aggressive as you progress. The AI is surprisingly smart at cutting off your escape routes, leading to absolute panic in the narrow hallways. It's short, it's a little clunky, and the replayability mostly comes from dragging new friends into the nightmare. But for $2 and some change, the amount of hilarious, terrifying chaos it generates is unmatched. Dark Deity is a love letter to classic Game Boy Advance tactical RPGs that completely removes the most frustrating part of the genre, permanent death. Instead of losing your favorite sniper forever, they take permanent stat penalties when they fall in battle, forcing you to seriously weigh the cost of every mistake. The story can get a bit wordy, but managing the deep class promotion system and building relationships between your troops is incredibly satisfying. Scoring a 30-hour tactical campaign that actively respects your nostalgia for under $4 is a phenomenal use of your sale budget. Let me know which of these you're actually adding to your cart first. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next batch of deals, and spend that budget wisely.